Hello, and welcome to the Bigger Boat Podcast. We are the movie podcast going through Steven Spielberg's back catalogue one film at a time. I'm Luke, and as always, I'm joined by a man who's been asked, nay begged, to stop broadcasting by our government. But long live the power of the free press. People need to know about the films of Steven Spielberg. It's Joe Dawson.
Damn right.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Good to see you. It's been a bit of time since last recorded.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
because, of course, we usually have a back catalogue.
A little Spielberg well.
We have a little well to draw upon, don't we?
Exactly.
When we can't bother to see each other for a couple of weeks.
Well, we put the movie bucket of chat down into the well of Spielberg, and this metaphor. I've gone with this metaphor. I'm going to finish it, and then we pull out the movies. No, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can tell you haven't done this for a while. Yeah. You proved the point.
Exactly. We're
not
out of
that
practice.
Well, but yeah, you have. So
very well. So sorry this episode is a bit late. There's been a gap by a week simply because we ran out of our back catalogue of films to talk about, so we've had to delay it. But from here on in, we've got the next 3 episodes until the end sorted, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, that little thing called work got in the way, so sorry about that.
Yes, absolutely. But how has your week been since it's been so long that I've seen you?
Yeah, it's been quite good.
Yeah?
We actually had like the long weekend, 3-day weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was really good. Nice chilling out.
Yeah.
Got a chance to go to the cinema and that sort of thing.
Very good. Shall I ask you about the film you watched?
Well,
what did you see?
Let me just ask you generally before we get to that.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Yep, I'm very good. Not too bad. What have I done this week? I was working on the bank holiday Monday, which was unfortunate.
Yes.
But so thanks for rubbing in your 3-day week weekend for me. Are you up to date with Game of Thrones?
I am, yes.
That is very exciting. So, of course, no, we won't give anyone any spoilers, but what are your thoughts?
First 3 episodes, because we're up to episode 4 at point of recording.
Yeah.
First 3 episodes, I was disappointed.
Yeah, especially episode 3 for me.
It's left very flat.
Yes, as cold as a White Walker.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
yes. Episode 4 got better.
Episode 4 was better. Yes, that's true. We've got to be very careful not to say
We have.
about even any characters who are alive or dead.
Yeah.
Did you know Did you know the question that spiked on Google after, what was it, episode 2? Like, everyone started typing it in. Can you guess what that question was?
No.
The question was, everyone started typing it, how old is Maisie Williams?
Oh, yeah.
Because this poor girl who we've watched since she was 12 years old.
Yeah, it was a bit disturbing.
It was really disturbing.
Like, I can't do that.
No, exactly. But it's just a body, and it is the body of a 22-year-old, so it's fine.
Is that what you say after a night of love? That was just a body, and it was the body of a 22-year-old.
Yes, Your Honour.
Wow, suddenly this podcast is like the game or something.
Or Operation Yew Tree. One of the two. Anyway, I don't know how we count back from that.
Yeah. So you're not particularly enjoying this sort of season?
It's not I'm not enjoying it. I watch it and there are some good bits in it. But I think ever since the TV show has parted ways from the book, they've had to really wrap up their storytelling super quick, and they've ended up with a huge cohort of characters, all of which deserve some sort of finality or a nice character arc that is satisfying.
Yeah.
That is going to be impossible to deliver.
Yeah.
And now we're 2 episodes from the end, and there's still so many characters who are not going to get a satisfying ending.
Yeah.
I don't think.
But bizarrely, in the first 3 episodes, it was far too casual of not enough rounding up of things happening.
Yeah.
They were just kind of sat around.
Yeah. I found it was really dark.
It was really dark.
Like not in terms of like themes. In terms of I can't see what's going on.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I genuinely can't see or I'm orientated to what's going on.
So I had to turn up the brightness a huge amount.
Yeah.
And then of course there does become like you see a lot of flames eventually.
Yeah.
And that is overexposed and too bright for when you've turned your TV up.
Yeah.
So it's a constant combination of brightness up, brightness down.
Yeah.
Talk about lack of engagement. You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah, they had an impossible job though, but the showrunners.
They did.
But
I think for this the first time I can probably say I feel like they've really fallen short of the mark.
Yeah, and you know what? I sort of want something to shake up. I'd even be vying for Cersei to be on the throne. At the end, just to get things a bit not as clear cut as everything has been so far.
Yeah.
Or predictable as everything has been so far.
There was a little moment there in episode 1 where I suddenly thought, hang on, am I watching a Disney movie?
Mm.
And then we're riding those dragons.
Okay, yeah.
Snogging by the fountain.
Yeah. You don't like snogging, do you?
No.
Ugh. Girls.
I went to see Tolkien,
Okay.
the Nicholas Hoult movie at the cinema. I've been
That's
to the cinema for a while.
Nicholas Hoult.
Yes.
And
Lily Collins.
Lily Collins, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think of it? Because I have seen the trailer for that, and I do not plan on going to the cinema to see it because I thought it looked a bit crap.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it's got quite a high rating if you look at some of the reviews.
Does it? Okay.
Getting a sort of 8 out of 10
Really?
response.
Okay.
Yeah. There are times where it's a little bit slow. It feels like, right, you need another plot device or another story thread to really push it through.
Sure. Okay.
But there's some quite good acting. There's a few times where it feels a little bit like you can see Nicholas Hoult saying a line rather than sort of being the character.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it's pretty good. It's good to know his background a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of turmoil
Yeah.
went into, you know, you can definitely see echoes of it in the work. So quite good.
Yeah, okay. Is it one of those films where it sort of shows you their influences, where he has a ring and then looks at it meaningfully going, ooh, a ring. Ooh. I'm going to have a fellowship of friends or something like that.
Weirdly, they sort of do, but they do it in a much subtler way than what you're implying.
Yeah.
Things like, it's not trying to like pander to the audience to say like, this is where he got the inspiration.
Yeah.
But for example, he takes his date to see the opera, The Ring Circle.
Okay.
And things like that, which apparently wasn't, because it's about a magical ring
in
this fantasy world and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, so that, you know, he must have got the idea of, you know, the MacGuffin being a sacred ring from that. But then I have also read that, you know, some of the historical accuracy and that sort of thing is a little bit questionable.
Okay, so a few liberties were taken, but that's fine.
But that's fine.
Yeah.
Because it makes a compelling movie in its own...
Well, I'm glad it's compelling, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, because maybe I will check it out then. It does feel like a bit like a TV one, to be honest.
It's a Sunday afternoon movie. Yeah, but it delivers on that. You know, you don't feel like you're wasting your time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's an emotional experience, so...
Very good.
So have you seen a movie this week?
I have, because it's been actually a couple of weeks since we last spoke. I've seen a couple of movies. One we've already talked about, because it's a movie that you talked about a while back. I finally got around to watching The Favourite.
Right.
Yes. So I was surprised when you I said I didn't love it, because I thought it would be right up your street.
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same. I liked it, I didn't love it.
Yeah. Glad I've seen it, and I'm glad I saw it on the big screen. Did you see it on a small screen? Or?
I saw it on I watched it on the projector.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I thought it's weird. It's a really weird movie.
It is a weird movie, yeah.
And I just have how did this movie get such mainstream appeal?
Then go on to win loads of
Oscars. So this is one that sort of like you would have thought like an independent release that, you know, has a couple of weeks in the cinema, finds an audience because it has a lot to admire in it. It's some great performances. It's amazingly shot.
Yeah.
But the content is just so incredibly weird.
Yeah. It's almost like a David Lynch sort of audience.
Almost, yeah. No, I just don't understand how it's got so much mainstream appeal. But, you know, it's great. I don't think it's Yorgos Lanthimos' best film by far. I've not actually seen Killing of a Sacred Deer, but I did prefer The Lobster to it.
Yeah, see, I feel like his quirky style suited the story and everything of The Lobster.
Yeah.
Whereas this is actually quite historically accurate and things like that, as the script was written.
Yeah.
But his quirky style sort of clashes with any sort of historical accuracy that might be there, because history didn't look as odd as that.
It's true. I mean, it cuts to a scene where Nicholas Hoult is chucking satsumas at a naked man.
Yes.
And I thought Nicholas Hoult was really good in this, actually.
Yeah, he is good.
I don't want to bash him too much, but there's not been a huge amount of performances I've seen him. I've gone, you know, oh, he's really good in that. But I did really like him. I think you can take Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz and Emma Stone as giving great performances as standard.
Yeah.
But Nicholas Hoult, he did rise to their level, which very much impressed me. Like I said, it was shot really well. You got a really nice sense of the palaces that they lived in the fact that it follows all the characters around, spins around them, so you know exactly where people are and you can feel yourself in the space.
Yeah.
And it's shot often with like a fisheye lens as well.
Yeah.
You know.
It can give you a slight seasick kind of feeling
in
the cinema. Yeah, when it moves, you know, when it does like a 180 on a super wide lens, it sort of makes you feel a bit like, whoa, where are we going? But...
Yeah. And the score as well, there's just bits where it's almost like nails on a blackboard where and it keeps on repeating that sort of noise, and it's really off-putting.
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot to admire in it.
Yeah.
I didn't love it. I did like it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that wasn't the last film I wanted to talk about. So because I think we've already talked about it. So my actual last film I watched was a new Netflix release that was made in like 2013, but had been in like distribution hell in Britain for the last 4 or 5 years. Snowpiercer.
Right.
Have you heard of it before?
I don't think so.
So this got released in America back in 2013, I think, and just never got released in the UK. But it's finally on Netflix. It's by, what's his name? Bong Joon-ho. He's a South Korean director. He directed The Host.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it.
And Okja, which was a Netflix movie, which is really good.
I haven't seen it, but again, I've seen like the homepage little icon of it. Yeah.
And essentially, it's a dystopic sci-fi thriller based on this French comic, I think, from the 80s, where civilization has gone through like climate catastrophe. The world's frozen over, and the only people left are on a train that circles the globe every 365 days, which was created by this sort of crazy forward-thinking person who wanted to build this. And it's divided into sort of different classes. So the people at the back of the train are really poor. They have to eat these slabs of meat. The people at the front of the carriage are really rich. And it's about a rebellion of a guy leading a charge, played by Chris Evans, through the carriages to try and take over the train.
Ah, that's quite cool.
And it's really it's very dystopic. It feels a bit like Brazil almost in the way that it's shot and the different sort of the characters who are in it, who are sort of larger than life. And it's a very Orwellian sort of social commentary.
Yeah.
And it's really good. Every carriage feels different. There's some really odd people in it. It's just really enjoyable. I thought it's a really good like action thriller. It's really violent, and Chris Evans is sort of you sort of see him as Captain America, you know, this heroic, but which makes his sort of the final scenes where you realise what he's actually like when you think he's sort of the clean-cut hero guy. It makes it all more powerful. He's really good in this. So watch it. I think it's really good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that was the last film I watched. But today we're talking about The Post.
Yes.
His penultimate movie to date, Spielberg's.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you seen it before?
No, I haven't. I remember when the trailers came out and stuff. And this is a movie that seems to have like come and gone really quickly.
Yeah.
And people are like, you know, people say like, oh, what is the penultimate movie? And you say, oh, The Post. Some people are like, I never even heard of it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, did you not see the trailers with Meryl Streep and Tom Hanks? Like, oh, hang on, yeah. It's like set in a press office.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I do sort of vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Spielberg's name was sort of featured that much.
It was more like Streep and Hanks, wasn't it? Who finally working together.
I think because of, obviously, like, you know, we see their faces a lot and their names mean a lot.
Yeah.
Somehow, because Spielberg didn't put any particularly Spielbergian flares that were noticeable anyway by trailer.
Yeah.
That maybe his name got lost a little bit or something. Maybe. I'm not sure.
And I know he made this like super quickly as well, didn't he? He sort of made it in a production gap between making Ready Player One. So he was halfway through making Ready Player One, decided to bash out a Oscar-nominated movie in a couple of weeks.
Well, apparently he was waiting for the special effects, so he had shot Ready Player One.
Yeah.
And we were waiting for the special effects to sort of get rendered.
I know, and while Ireland were doing that, what should I do in my downtime? Could go on holiday, could do my tax return. I'll shoot The Post with Streep and Hanks.
Yeah, which then gets nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, absolutely mad. But this is the first time Spielberg's worked with Meryl Streep, which is very exciting.
It's the first time Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep have worked together, isn't it?
Yes, it is as well. Yeah. Because of this, we already mentioned it got another nom for Best Picture and another nom for the Meryl Streep Best Actress Award.
Yeah.
Actually, question for you. How many times has Meryl Streep won Best Actress? Little quiz.
Twice.
Yes. What movies?
One, Kramer versus Kramer.
No, she won Best Supporting Actress for that one.
Okay. The Iron Lady.
Iron Lady, yeah.
In my head I'm saying Mamma Mia, but obviously it obviously wasn't, so that doesn't count.
And Mamma Mia, correct.
Sophie's Choice?
Yeah!
Well,
hey! Very good. Okay, follow-up question. How many times has she been nominated for Best Actress?
Is it Meryl Streep that is the most nominated actress in the history of motion pictures? 11?
17.
Oh!
17 nominations. Absolutely. So actually, she's got the lowest hit rate.
Yeah.
Of any actress in the world, she's the most frequent loser of Best. And the only other question I've got is, who is the only actress who has more Best Actress wins than Meryl Streep, with 4?
Judi Dench.
No. Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she had 4. I can't remember which one's 4, but she has 4.
See.
Yeah. A little impromptu quiz there.
Yeah. Would you like to hear my Meryl Streep story?
Yeah. Is there?
So basically, I got locked inside Hammersmith Apollo for 3 days, 2 or 3 days.
What?
With Meryl Streep.
What? What? Why have you never told? What? How?
I was an extra.
Yeah.
In a movie called Florence Foster Jenkins, which
is
about the worst opera singer ever.
Yeah. No.
Apparently, David Bowie really loved Florence Foster Jenkins in real life.
Yeah. Okay.
He had like a couple of her albums and stuff, and I've heard him mention her in interviews and stuff like that.
In my mind, when you said that story, I imagined that scene from Friends where Chandler gets locked in a bank with the model actress, and they end up making out. Did that happen?
It did actually. No, it did.
So you were extra...
I've been locked inside a Burger King with Bradley Cooper and Jenna Miller as well. But again, that was being an extra. But anyway, yeah, so there was this great moment where, because obviously you get to witness for first hand sort of thing, because it was in the auditorium.
Yes.
They actually kind of ripped all the seats out and put their own ones in, because it was supposed to be Carnegie Hall in New York. So
yeah. We
had like a stand-in to look at while she was giving this a sort of terrible opera performance and stuff. And Meryl did it the first time, and they recorded that, and then they would play that back, and then we would be watching the sort of stand-in who stood in for all the lighting and that sort of thing, because they were about the same height and stuff.
Yeah.
And then it came times to turn the cameras around and film with Meryl.
Yeah.
So she came in, and she had sort of like the Statue of Liberty kind of headdress.
Okay.
Which then had like stars on it and stuff. And the stand-in had really long blonde hair.
Yeah.
And she gave her a hug, and then her headpiece got caught in the long blonde hair of her stand-in, and they had to spend a couple of minutes trying to untangle each other. So that was quite fun.
Yeah.
And there was this other moment where...
I was glad that those moments happened to someone like Meryl Streep.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was a very human moment.
Yeah.
And then the other time, the other funny thing she did was Stephen Frears took a long time to say cut after she had done this performance, and she didn't know what to do. So there was this sort of beat of like, what do I do now? So she just turned around and sort of like... I'll tell you what she did. It was just like Jarvis Cocker did to Michael Jackson. She turned around and went like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Flapped her hands behind her bum, basically.
Okay.
So there you go. That's what it's like working with Meryl Streep.
But I'm assuming when you say you were locked in, there were many other people there.
Many people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. So before we go and watch the post, I've got a little question for you from the internet. So can you think of... So what we want to find out, I posted this on Twitter. What do you think are the most classically Spielbergian films which are not directed by Steven Spielberg? And I put that question to you a couple of days ago, and I also put it to the internet.
Yes.
I wanted to see what you came up with.
And obviously I've been following that as well.
Yeah.
I tried to think of some different ones. So, you know, because obviously I could also, tell you, Gremlins or Poltergeist, they seem to be very high on the list.
Yeah.
As being Spielbergian.
My extra question from there, which is very difficult. Can you think of one that doesn't have Spielberg involved, either in a producer role or a story role?
Yes.
Which is quite difficult.
This is why I've come up with this.
Okay.
There's a couple of reasons why I've chosen this.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like a spoof of a Spielberg movie to begin with.
Yeah.
And it also is a nice tie back to one of the very first episodes we ever did. Now we're coming to the end.
Okay, go on.
King Solomon's Mines, the 1985 movie.
Yes.
With Richard Chamberlain and Sharon Stone. It's got John Rhys Davies in it.
Yeah.
And it is very, very, very much like any of the Indiana Jones original trilogy.
Because it did spark, the success of Raiders did really spark a whole host of copycat movies, or like very much harking back to those 30 serials, because they were huge money-making machines. So with Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then the other one that I've got is Romancing the Stone.
Oh yeah,
which was a Bob Zemeckis movie. Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, Spielberg had absolutely nothing to do with King Solomon's Mines.
No,
whereas obviously Robert Zemeckis and Spielberg are friends,
aren't
they? So...
True. And also Romancing the Stone was written by Diane Thomas, who then wrote the script initially for Always. Which is the other, which we talked about before she died in a car crash, which I think we talked about in the Always episode.
We did.
Yeah. So that's a good shout, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit out of left field. I don't think many people would come up with that.
Yeah.
Because no one listens to our podcast.
Exactly. Well, the other ones that the first one that came to my mind, which I think it was Spielberg produced, was Super 8, J.J. Abrams' film from a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Which
it's very much a homage.
It's very much a homage to it. But I absolutely love it. I think it's great. great.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good film.
I love a good homage.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to homage someone, you might as well homage Steven Spielberg.
And I've got to say, like, I think The Force Awakens is a very, very strong Star Wars movie. Essentially, it is a homage to A New Hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there is nothing wrong with some good, solid filmmaking homaging.
Yeah,
if homaging is a word.
We said the word homage a bit. Yeah. Some other suggestions we've had. So, at Mike79p suggested Joe Dante's Explorers.
Never seen it.
I've not seen it either. But Joe Dante is the guy who did Gremlins and Inner Space and things like that. So, very much in that sort of vein.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one, Frank Marshall directed Arachnophobia. I think in 1990.
Yes.
Which again feels like that sort of Spielbergian, poltergeisty horror.
Hitchcockian suspense.
Hitchcockian suspense. Exactly.
Yeah, it is. That's classic Hitchcockian suspense.
Yes. Any others that you can think of?
No, that was the main one.
Cool. Well, let us know if you can think of any more that we should have talked about, or any ones we didn't say. Otherwise, I think it's probably time to go and watch The Post.
Okay. All right, we'll see you shortly.
The Times has 7,000 pages detailing how the White House has been lying about the Vietnam War for 30 years.
And we are back from watching The Post. Hello. How was that?
It was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah.
Very talky.
Very talky.
And it's nice to see a Spielberg movie that's under 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm not too tired.
Also, we can't really criticise being a talky podcast for talking for hours on about the films. Actually, it was a bit too talky. I think you'll find.
Yeah.
Should we do a little synopsis for the listener?
I think we should.
So actually, to start off with, you can watch this on Amazon Prime. It is available to stream at time of recording. So if you want to watch along with us, please do.
I did also see you can rent it on YouTube for $2.50 as well.
Perfect. So it is worth your time, I think. But the story it's a true story set in the 1970s, 1971, I think, of the publication of the Pentagon Papers. This was a scientific study commissioned by the Secretary of Defense at the time, Bob McNamara. Was he Secretary of Defense, I think?
I think so, yeah.
Fact check. Sorry if not. But he commissioned, it was a paper commissioned, a scientific paper, looking at the US's involvement in Vietnam preceding the war, from 1945 all the way up through multiple presidencies to the war itself, which eventually concluded that the war was unwinnable, and yet despite the fact that the government know this, was still sending in troops. And it's about the Washington Post's, and specifically their owner, Kay Graham, played by Meryl Streep's, decision to publish that while that was trying to be suppressed by the government, which led to, injunctions and Supreme Court cases trying to silence the free press.
Yeah.
Is that a relatively good summary?
Yes. And it also deals with her sort of decision making, because she inherits her position.
Yeah.
So it deals with her as a personal character.
Yeah.
Sort of going on this journey of sort of finding her feet, you might say.
And let's start with that, actually, because ultimately, despite the fact that this is a film about government control of the free press and, the constitutional rights, I found that this is much more a story about a woman in business finding her place.
Yes.
In the world.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a personal story.
It was a real personal story, and that's the thing
with the backdrop of Vietnam War, Nixon, and loads of other trouble.
Yeah.
Right behind her. So
absolutely. And all the stuff that worked for me was the stuff on the personal level of Streep herself, rather than the stuff, the upholding of the Constitution.
This is going to sound strange, but she is very relatable, which is very odd to say a middle-aged woman, millionaire who's inherited a newspaper in the 70s is relatable, but strangely she is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think you can identify with her sort of slight overwhelming feeling of like, I'm in this boardroom with all of these powerful would-be investors and all this kind of stuff, and she's very like, to begin with, it's probably a combination of sort of wanting to, not really take the helm when it comes to sort of huge amounts of responsibility and letting other people sort of...
Yeah, she lets people mansplain things to her.
Exactly.
She will not people speak over her, and they don't. And she doesn't.
Yeah, they don't value her opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. She's often shot as the only woman in the room. She'll be often like isolated, and actually I remember you mentioned the power dynamics when we talked about our Bridge of Spies episode.
Yes, when it comes to composing a shot. Yeah,
exactly. Where you noticed that in some shots Tom Hanks was very big when he was being the more powerful figure, and the other people shot very small. Yeah. She starts off being shot very small, or either sat down and often shot from above. above, and the men are towering over her, and then eventually she's shot at equal pegging towards the end. And the whole thing is shot around that sort of arc. It's a very satisfying character arc to see.
It is. And very relatable, because it's not a huge jump, but it is a confidence grow, should we say? And you can sort of see the logic in how she got there. So that's rewarding, I think.
Absolutely.
And I've also, having just read the Wikipedia page as well.
We do our research here on the Bigger Boat podcast.
Sure do. There's a specific little section for the costuming, which is kind of rare, actually.
Okay.
But they mention the fact she starts off in sort of greys and stuff, which is very sort of like, it mutes you into the background and things, especially around offices. She starts wearing gold and stuff.
Very good. I didn't notice that.
She raises up, so for some reason you notice gold because it's shiny, it's aesthetically pleasing, It's a subtle thing, but it's like, once I read that, I was like, I can see that.
And also the dialogue, the way she's talked about. So when because she inherits the paper from her husband, his father, and the husband died, I think, committed suicide a few years back. Isn't that right? So it's talked about as her husband's paper rather than her paper. It's talked about, Kay or Catherine, she throws a great party, as it, it's a bit demeaning, isn't it? She has a place and she's very good at that. But leave the real work to the boys.
It's the equivalent of sort of saying, she dresses very well, but there's not much upstairs or whatever. It's that sort of mentality, isn't it?
And it's actually, despite the fact that ultimately the free press win and freedom of speech is upheld, the big emotional moment, the fist pump moment, is when she's been spoken to by the other board member, played by Bradley Whitford, who's trying to argue against the decision, and she just turns around and goes, enough. And at that point I was like, that's the best moment in it. It's a proper fist pump moment.
Well, the other one, which I think is just before that moment, is, do you remember there's Fritz, who she argues with quite a lot, and he seems to, I wouldn't say like a complete antagonist, but he does have, let's say, the devil's advocate position of saying what the bad thing that could happen is.
He's
you do that,
an advisor,
if you do that, the investors might pull out, etc. So he just makes them more aware. But there is that great moment where she says, like, Fritz, what would you do? He says, I wouldn't publish. She goes, okay, let's publish.
Absolutely.
Paraphrasing slightly, but
absolutely.
That's a real sort of like, yes, I am choosing the other path.
Did you see, because when reading about this film, a lot of things reference to All the President's Men, that film in the 70s about the Watergate scandal.
Yes, I've actually never seen it.
I've never seen it.
It's a William Goldman script.
It was. And I was planning to watch it, but I didn't actually get time. Apparently, the final scene where, right at the end, where the guard's going into the Watergate building. Apparently, that's like mirrored. I think that's the beginning of All the President's Men.
I see, right.
So it's sort of tributes to that movie itself.
I see. There's the beginning and the end. There's one movie which it massively reminded me of, because it also starred Tom Hanks. It begins with Vietnam, right? You actually see
Saving Private Ryan, or
no, Forrest Gump.
There's
a Vietnam War at the beginning. You actually see troops, right? And then at the end, now this is on the list of things that I loved about Forrest Gump but went completely over my head. Remember, there's that bit they show Nixon on the TV and he goes, no, don't stay there. I know of a much nicer hotel. And then you see Forrest Gump on the phone. He goes, hey, there's some flashlights in the building opposite. They're keeping me awake.
The Watergate.
The Watergate scandal just about to unravel.
To be fair, I've only seen Forrest Gump once.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Someone pointed that out to me. I was like, oh yeah, I totally didn't even see that as a 12-year-old. But I don't know why. I don't know why I would notice it as a 12-year-old, to be honest. But
so All the President's Men has the character Ben Bradley, which is played by Tom Hanks. In that as well. I think it's played by Jason Roberts. But I think it would have been useful to watch that as well, because it's meant to echo that. Do you know the other film that this reminded me of was Spotlight?
Yes. About the priests.
About the priests, which is actually written by the same guy, one of the same guy, Josh Singer. Which is sort of, again, set in a newsroom about these investigative journalists trying to uncover a whole host of badness covered up by the Catholic Church. But for me, I thought the similarities between that film and this one was so prescient, and I saw Spotlight first. But that had so much more emotional heft for me than this film. I think this film is the actual constitutional stuff, the court case. It's lacking something. It's lacking a particular drive. It's lacking some sort of emotional beat for some strange reason. It works on a personal level, but the whole background of it it wasn't that. It was engaging, but it wasn't. I think that's why most people don't remember this film too much. That we know it's one of those good films that happened at the time. But
so we should probably point out that Spotlight, it also won Best Picture.
Best Picture, yeah, it did, yeah.
And I remember at the time, I went to see it, and I have to admit, I thought, yeah, good film.
Yeah.
That's like a 4 out of 5 star movie. And I thought, why did that win Best Picture?
Yeah.
Because it was relatively small scale. Most of it is in an office.
Yeah.
To kind of counter you, almost, based on that, I would say I preferred The Post to Spotlight.
Fair enough. I think Spotlight is one of those awards botherers because of the subject matter.
Yeah.
You know, I think people vote for it because they need to show that they're against
yeah.
child abuse. You know, like, I think it was a deserving winner. I thought it was meticulously put together, and it's not a showy film at all.
But it's much more about one theme.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, bringing down that sort of mentality, or if you like.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it had issues and stuff, but it was also a personal story as well as wide-reaching consequence. So for me, it worked better, The Post.
Okay, but I agree. I like the personal journey of Meryl Streep, but the subject matter I just don't know. It didn't have that. It just didn't connect to it as much.
Yeah, I tell you what. I feel like as I was watching it, you know, my sort of general feeling was it's very talky, and the truth is, as a Brit, I don't feel particularly connected to the Vietnam War.
No,
personally, because I you know, we don't really mention it much.
No,
you know, we've certainly not talked about as much as, you know, World War II or anything like that.
Exactly.
So it's quite, as a Brit, slightly less relatable because it's a very American story. I feel.
Same with Watergate as well. You know, it's
it pops up every now and again when people mention governmental corruption and Nixon's leadership.
Yeah, you're right. There is a detachment from it.
But there is a detachment. But what I think is almost unique about this movie in the Spielberg canon is, can you remember, because I looked back through our Instagram account the other day actually, because now we're coming towards the end of it. Can you remember you posted something about Phantom Thread?
Yes.
That Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Yeah.
Which is that, you know, you enjoyed it at the time, but you were a little bit like not quite sure what to make of it. And then you spent the next sort of week or so just thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really grew on me. I think I posted it because I put it as one of my top 10 movies of last year.
For me, I feel like The Post is gonna be one of those.
Okay.
At the time of watching it, I was like, very talky, not quite relatable to me.
Yeah.
And the more, I know it's only been a short time since we watched it, but I mean, like, I feel like after the event, I think there's a lot to talk about, and I suddenly find myself thinking about it and being like, that's quite good. And I feel like Spielberg doesn't tend to do that. He's very like here in the moment while you watch it.
Yeah.
You do all your thinking now and don't think about much after.
True.
This has got some longevity in terms of thought-provoking.
What are the things you're dwelling on then? What things do you think you'll be mulling over?
I like the way they've dealt with the issue of women in power.
Yes.
And it's not rammed down your throat. It's not in a we hate men tone. It's just this is how it was.
Yeah.
And this is what it feels like to step into the role.
Yeah.
It's not a man-hating thing. I think it's done in quite a nice way.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a bit, you know, when they've won the Supreme Court case, when she's going into the Supreme Court building, there is a sort of an intern who works at the court who says she admires Keir Graham, and that's, you know, and that's done quite nicely. And when she walks out, she's walking past a load of women who you can see she has inspired.
Yeah.
And in a lot of films, that is done in quite an on-the-nose way. But I felt that this was done in, yes, I know what you're saying, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't rammed down your throat.
Yeah, he could have gone further.
It could have gone further. It was just done in a nice little subtle way. You know, it tells you this woman is inspiring.
Yeah.
And has shown
you know, that she could turn heads by the end of it, whereas before she couldn't. You know, that's enough.
Absolutely.
Of a character arc. And then, I mean, everything about, because obviously, like, it's to do with, like, on the backdrop of consequences of the Vietnam War, and then freedom of the press, and all this kind of stuff. Because we're a little bit past it now, but do you remember the whole sort of the freedom of the press thing propped up again, sort of like 5 years ago or something, with the whole sort of, remember, like, all the phone tapping of celebrities and all of this kind of stuff, and
yes, that's right,
personal information, and all
I remember when Hugh Grant became like our spokesperson for what was right in the world. It's like, what has gone wrong with the country that Hugh Grant is now our moral spokesperson?
Exactly.
No, but I still think it's prescient though. Like, especially like that's why he wanted to make the movie now. That's why he said, you know what?
Yeah.
This script has come to me from Liz Hannah, who wrote it, and he said I need to make this now because otherwise it's going to be out of date.
But see, I don't think it is going to necessarily. It might date, but I think it's really good to have a document of the moment. Like, yes, it's obviously set in the past, but it's got all of the issues that we think about currently.
It's true. And it's interesting because it was made at the time time when they thought Hillary was going to become president, in which it would chart the emotional, sort of a woman in power.
Yeah.
They thought Hillary was going to be the leader of the free world.
Yeah.
But instead, it's not focused on the woman part of it. It's focused on the government censorship of the free press and fake news and what Donald Trump has now sort of pushed on to us and what is on in the media. The government is censoring free press by questioning the credibility of genuine news sources. And that I think it's become
with his whole fake news campaign stuff.
Absolutely,
you can totally imagine Nixon doing something similar like that. Actually, like, oh yeah, they're publishing these things. Don't listen to them. They're all fake. You can imagine Nixon saying that, right?
Absolutely, and it's become. I think the film has become even more prescient now because of Trump, even more than it would have been if Hillary came in power. Actually, so this reminded me when Mark Kermode was reviewing it. He wrote down, "There's something almost quaint about the spectre of a corrupt US president threatening to quash a story rather than the entire fourth estate." Like it's like, oh, it's sweet. They're just trying to squash a story rather than the entire credibility of the press.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really well put. But yeah, I think this goes and this fits with the post 2000 Spielberg sort of like body of work, in the fact that he does make a few adventure movies, but he's making movies which he feels represent the time, with Munich, War of the Worlds, The Terminal, Lincoln and Bridge of Spies and this.
Yeah.
These are all things which have themes going on which represent the political climate.
Yeah.
And he does that very well. He puts himself and his opinions in there.
Yeah. In quite a nice neutral way as well, I always think. So like
balanced.
Balanced way. So when we did Munich, I remember thinking, like, because we mentioned the fact, he's a Jewish filmmaker.
Yeah.
If he wanted, he could definitely make a movie from one side of the fence and, say, like, oh, look at these awful people who have done this. But he chose not to. He did it in a much more central point of view, didn't he?
Yeah.
So I think, top mark.
One thing I want to ask. So, was there really any tension in the whole film? Was there any sort of peril? There was a Merrill, no peril.
Well, there was, because, they mention about whether... Do you get really the sense that the Washington Post is sort of an institution yet?
It's sort of a local paper. Like, we know the Washington Post... because we know the Washington Post is like one of the major newspapers in America, don't we?
Yeah, but strongly implied that it wasn't the case then. It was more of a local newspaper.
It was like the Dorset Echo.
Yeah.
Didn't think that was going to get a shout out on this week's podcast.
I do think there are tense moments. I mean, I thought when the government files were stolen, and do you remember he at the beginning and he goes through?
Yes.
That's very tense.
So when Matthew Rhys is stealing the documents in the initial book, so in that scene, why if you're stealing documents, he goes out and he stops awkwardly next to the security guards before he leaves, saying, "I'm suspicious," and then walks out again. What? Why? Why you just walk? Why do that?
Double bluff.
Could be. Yeah, he would never be acting this suspicious if he had really had his papers in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, next one. So that was tense, but that was tense because he was stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is sort of tense. I mean, obviously, there's the threat that she might go to jail for the consequences of her actions. And
did the movie really make us think that was a realistic possibility? Or did it
is a real possibility, but we know it sort of didn't happen because we know the consequences because it's set in the past.
Yes, yeah.
But it could be more tense. But I think maybe what makes her personal story so relatable is the fact that it is more grounded in reality. If you see what I mean. If the consequences were much bigger in a sort of filmy way.
Yeah. But what I mean is,
then maybe the story wouldn't feel as real.
You've got the threat. So the threats are the fact that Nixon and the Supreme Court are going to silence her and prosecute her and the paper for publishing.
Yeah.
And also the fact that the investors are going to lose faith and the company's going to go bust.
Yeah.
Would having Nixon, like, you do hear Nixon in phone calls.
Yeah.
Like, he's shot from outside in, you can see like outside into the Oval Office and you can see the silhouette of someone who's meant to be Nixon.
Yeah.
And I think, are they actually using Nixon's real voice in real phone calls?
It sounded a lot like it.
It does sound like a lot like it, doesn't it? So maybe they are, which is why they didn't get...
I totally would not be surprised if they recorded every single phone call to and from the White House. So I would not be surprised if that was real.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but...
So, because otherwise, if they weren't using real ones, why did they not use an actor playing Nixon, who was a more antagonistic figure, saying, you know, because then it would be more, would it be more tense if you had, you got to know Nixon as a character in this?
I don't think so.
No, okay.
I think that what they're trying to do, the angle that they're trying to come from, is he was just a sort of ominous black shadow over, you know, an added threat, you know, to their own press world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, almost like the opposite of, who was the informer for the Watergate scandal, you know, was it, I want to say Deep Throat?
Right, the porn movie.
No. But there was an informer, and he had a particular code name, and he was meant to be this silhouette-y figure, and I'm just trying to think, maybe Nixon.
I think you're right.
Deep Throat, yeah.
Yeah.
I think from his voice, rather than what he could do in the bedroom. But anyway, maybe Nixon is trying to, their portrayal of Nixon is trying to mirror Deep Throat, but from the opposite side.
Maybe. Yeah.
In the fact that he's a silhouette-y figure just speaking on the phone.
Yeah.
You know, it's trying to foreshadow what would eventually take him down in Watergate.
Yeah.
Maybe. You thought I would have to go home before you started Googling Deep Throat. I didn't think it was particularly tense, but I don't think that necessarily... I thought it was a very good telling of a story, which was incredibly well acted.
Yeah.
And had a really nice emotional journey for Meryl Streep. The contents, the backdrop of it, and the whole constitutional story didn't have that sort of deep emotional punch for me, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I know it can work for other people. It wasn't necessarily meant to be the most... I don't think it can... It's difficult to generate that much tension.
Yeah.
When you've got stories that you know what happens.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked to me about that when I've watched like films like First Man, and you say, oh, how do you know that's tense? How does it get tense if you know he lands on the moon successfully?
Yeah.
You know, but there are ways that they manage that.
Yeah. Because it's to do with the personal journey that the person goes, the struggles they're going through, sort of like in their own head to accomplish that external thing.
Yeah.
But in this case, that externalization is essentially sort of only a reflection of Meryl Streep's decision making.
Yeah.
So they're tied up quite nicely.
Yes.
I thought so.
Absolutely. And it's great that, you know, Spielberg had come under criticism quite a bit, and we've talked about it beforehand, of his portrayal of women in movies, in the fact that prior to this, it was only been The Colour Purple that you've had a female-led movie.
Yeah.
So one film out of, this is number 31.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is probably his first film in a very long time that has passed the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
And you've said before, you know, I think it is a feminist story that really tells you the story of this woman and her finding her place in her job and, you know, her personal life without ramming it down the nose, without having a sort of social justice warrior sort of...
And it's not really...
facade to
what
it.
I quite like about it, and maybe this ties into that whole thing we were just saying about Nixon, is it's not like a woman's personal battle against one man.
Yeah.
Yes, Nixon is sort of the figurehead for the cover-up.
Yes.
But he is not responsible. You know, he was not even in power when the documents that they're writing about, he wasn't any, you know, he was no concern to anyone then.
Yeah.
So it's her against the system and not against like one man.
Yeah, absolutely right.
You know, so I quite like that because that adds to the feminist angle.
Yeah.
And it's not a taking down of a man by a woman. It's an institutional corruption being brought down by one woman. So
she's rallying against a patriarchal system.
Yes.
And finding her place in that. Yeah, absolutely.
So see why, like, the more I think about it, you know, this film works for me.
Oh, it definitely works. I've no doubt that it works.
Yeah. But I came away thinking, oh yeah, that's solid filmmaking. But the more I think about it, the more I sort of like it.
Yeah. What I've written down a few things about what I think makes this film Spielbergian. Because like you said, like, this wasn't really advertised. This was advertised as, I remember the poster, it was the big steps in Washington, and it said Streep's Hanks, the Post.
Yeah.
In like big white writing.
Yeah.
And Spielberg's name wasn't on it. So the question, could this be made by another filmmaker who, you know, just as well? But I think it probably could, but I think there are some real Spielbergian sort of themes to it.
Yeah.
Have you got any that you want to talk about, or shall I start?
Yeah, why don't you start?
So I think it's got that moral clarity, which a lot of Spielbergian's films have.
Yeah.
The protagonists, well, at least some of the protagonists, know what to do, and they will do what they think is right, and then what they think is specifically constitutional, irrelevant to what other people are telling, or the antagonists are telling him.
Yeah.
They will stand up. They will always stand up to do what's right. They have a moral clarity, which I think they have in a lot of films.
Yeah, back to what I was saying about her being sort of relatable.
Yeah.
In a bizarre way afraid because I'm not a middle-aged American woman in the 70s.
Yes.
What makes it relatable is that also ties in with the whole thing that we've always said about a Spielbergian hero.
Yeah.
That sense, regardless of whether, you know, it is actually the case or not, she's an ordinary woman in an extraordinary circumstance.
She is an underdog, and despite the fact of her resources available to her, she's still an underdog, and she is against an implacable bully.
Yes.
And that goes back to Duel, his very first film, in the fact that, you know, it's an unknowable baddie who doesn't really have a face that they're trying to rally against. And you see it throughout his career.
Yeah, very much.
And the idealism behind it all, just, you know, it feels very, you know, idealism and versus pragmatism. I think it feels very much Spielbergian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elements of family as well. And
absolutely.
That sort of thing.
Yes, true. Yeah.
You know, responsibilities over and
an absent
family.
Father because her husband's dead.
Exactly.
There we go. Yes.
Yeah.
That's your Spielberg bingo.
Yeah, so do you remember things like when Tom Hanks goes to visit Meryl Streep in her home and stuff? And
yes.
I remember one particular scene where she closes the back door because her grandchildren or something are playing in the backyard or something.
Yeah.
I remember that scene, firstly because there's a couple of things which really annoy me about it, and this is getting into the filmmaking bits now.
Yeah, sure.
One thing which always really bugs me in a movie, and you're going to say, like, I am so petty for even noticing this, but
you're a petty guy.
It goes against the reality, like, once you notice it, so I'm sorry if this really bugs you now.
Yeah.
Lights on in the daytime. Every single,
and
there's a lot of them, light that's in her house is on.
Yeah.
In bright sunshine outside. So
she's got the money, you know. Exactly. Money's no object.
No one cared about climate change then.
That electricity bill, you know, that can rack up. That's fine.
Yeah. And then secondly, if you rewatch that scene, it's, I'll do this in quote marks even though you can't see them.
Yeah.
It's grammatically incorrect when it comes to camera angles and stuff like that.
What do you mean?
As in, like, well, there's no reason why he would want to draw attention to the camera work.
Okay.
He's not doing a French New Wave thing where they try to sort of make you aware that you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
Because of the drama, you know, it's a quite straightforward drama where you should care about the characters and not the filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Some of his camera choices to put next to each other grammatically, so they almost purposefully don't flow properly, are not grammatically correct. So it'll notice it particularly in that scene, and he does do this a couple of times. He does an unnecessary jump cut because the results are, so he'll go from, like, at one point he goes from a mid shot of the same person to a close up.
Sure.
It's fine to pack a punch. So if you watch
like a cut but a zoom in.
Yeah. So if you watch, for example, it works really well when Liv Tyler does it in Lord of the Rings. If you want him mid-shot, come and claim him in close-up.
Yeah, okay.
You know, you've had a punch to the face
at
the same time, you know, but she was rallying against the ring raids at the time with Frodo. This was not doing that, and he was doing things like that. He did it a couple of times.
Okay.
Like, why are you punching between, you know, a mid or a wide shot straight to a close-up of the same person? Because, you get a strange zoom.
When she's talking about, like, something benign, it's like, welcome to my house, face up.
Would you like
a cup of tea?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it doesn't quite work because the effect is not what he's after.
So why do you think he's doing that then?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
And this is one of the first times I've actually been aware, because I've heard before that he shoots for the editing room. I've heard Michael Kahn say that. What that means is shoots a lot of footage from a lot of different camera angles, even though he's supposed to be very prepared, as in, like, he knows how many shots he's going to fit into each
he sort of knows the camera angles.
Yeah. But I think he does, you know, quite a lot of takes, you know, from each of those camera angles and stuff, to give him, because why not? Because he can afford it, basically. It's when you're a low budget filmmaker that you have to be really specific.
Well, do you think he even did that for this one because the production was so short on this? So the production began. So we said this at the beginning. This was shot during a break in Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Production began on the 1st of May for a December that year release.
Really?
So December the 22nd it was released in America, and they shot it. Only production began on the 1st of May.
Wow.
So under 8 months.
That's amazing.
Which is amazing. Like, that's like almost like Duel, you know, where you made it in like 13 days or 11 days. You know?
Well, it was made for a small budget, wasn't it? Was it 50 million?
I can't remember. I don't really know what's small these days, to be honest.
Well, I think that is for him. One of the smallest budgets he's ever had.
Yeah. So apparently, he relied heavily on Tom Hanks for this to make it so quickly. So he didn't do any rehearsals at all.
Yeah.
But Tom Hanks Hanks knew he wanted to make this quickly.
Yeah.
Knows how, obviously, this is his 5th or 6th film with him.
Spielberg and Tom Hanks know the real character. Ben
Bradley.
Ben Bradley. They both know him.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, because I found that quite interesting. So he got the actors, like the newsroom actors, all round to Tom Hanks's house a week beforehand, off the books, just to do their own rehearsals. Just to try and get things moving, because they knew Spielberg wanted to do things quickly, and prepped them about how Spielberg works and what they expects of them on set, so everything can move quite quickly.
Yeah.
But you're right, so Tom Hanks met the real Ben Bradley. So the way he did this is, it was through, remember Nora Ephron, screenwriter, wrote Harry Met Sally?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so she was married to the All the President's Men reporter, Carl Bernstein, so they knew each other then, and Tom Hanks met Katharine Graham on the day she died.
No way!
In 2001. He was sat next to her at a random event in 2001 on a table.
Yeah.
She went home and died that day.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right?
That's interesting.
So odd.
Yeah, really odd.
Yeah. Almost as if he slipped something in her. No. It was all natural causes.
I feel like I need to just go back and just clarify why it was so odd that he chose to do it that way, because there's an easy way not to have that zooming effect.
Yeah.
Which is you intercut it with a shot of Tom Hanks. So we talk about that reaction shot. Remember when we broke down some of the shots in Jaws?
Yeah.
So simply, you have your wide shot, you then cut to a reaction shot of Tom Hanks, even if he's just listening, then have your close-up of Meryl Streep. You can have a slight dialogue overlap while you're looking at Tom Hanks. You can say the same thing. Why he chose not to put those reaction shots in every now and again to give you this strange, you're grammatically incorrect and I'm noticing the camera angles, is a mystery to me.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have enough time. I don't know.
Maybe.
But that scene, I'm telling you, is flawed.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'll watch that again and have a look, see what you think, listener, and if you notice that as well, let us know.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about some of the other actors? We talked about Streep quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, Hanks goes without saying that he's going to put in a great performance. I love Tom. I like watching Spielberg movies. I've decided, like, Tom Hanks. Greetings to Tom Hanks, by the way.
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. I think he's great. I can watch him in absolutely everything. He's brilliant.
Because obviously he plays every man very, very well. At times, he's slightly against his type in this movie, which I quite like.
He's a bit spikier, isn't he?
He's a bit spikier, yeah. I wouldn't say unlikable.
No.
But he is bossy.
Yeah.
Whereas usually he's sort of an everyman who's sort of like just dealing with the situation. There are certain times where he actually sort of ruffles some feathers just because he can.
Yeah. And he's also speaking quite a gruff voice as well. He's like putting on his man voice, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
Hi.
Yeah. Which I quite liked, you know. It wasn't too distracting.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great in this. And I really like Bob Odenkirk in it as well. It's really nice to see him getting some roles in some big films.
Who is he?
Bob Odenkirk, I can't remember the name of the character he plays. He's the bald guy who, he gets he's the one who flies with the papers.
Oh, okay.
You know, he gets the he's Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. The one who gets cornered, who's like, who is your source?
Yeah.
Is it the same source?
Yes, that's him. Yeah.
I knew I recognised him. Yes.
Yes. It's really great to see him, because he was saying, he really enjoyed working with the cast. He said, he when he was describing this film, he's like, Spielberg hired loads of character actors. Which I like the term, because character actors are what Americans call actors who have, big versatility, can play any role. It's what British people call actors.
Yeah. And not just being themselves while the camera rolls. Yeah. And David Cross, of course. Was I the only one who was thinking...
David Cross was in this?
Yeah.
Which one was he?
He was just one of the guys.
Tobias Funke was in this?
Yeah. I was thinking, spent the whole time that he was on screen thinking, has he got a pair of cutoffs under those trousers?
He hadn't blew himself, so I didn't recognise him.
He was slightly in disguise, but he was in there. Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
I completely missed that.
Ah, okay. I should have pointed it out.
Who else did I see? I saw Bradley Whitford in it. He's the guy who Meryl Streep tells enough to. I very much like Bradley Whitford. And it had Jesse Plemons as the lawyer as well, who was in Bridge of Spies with him as well. I quite liked him as well. He had a good role.
Did you also spot Sasha Spielberg?
Was she in this as well?
Yes.
She gets everywhere.
She was the girl who ran up to the reporter and said, "Are you important?" and dropped the box off.
Is that Sasha Spielberg?
That's
very good.
Spielberg's daughter, yeah.
I've been thinking about if we ever went on Pointless together, the ultimate dream would be a Spielberg question in the final.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
Imagine if we didn't get a Pointless.
But I thought a good one would be is like name an actor who has appeared in more than 2 Spielberg movies or 2 or more Spielberg movies, because all of the main actors, like you'll get, everyone will get the Dreyfus, the Hanks, and the Cruise and the Rylances.
Yeah.
But the actual little actors who have been, there's not actually that many who've been in more than one.
Yeah, he's not a sort of in the same way like Martin Scorsese used De Niro and now DiCaprio. He's not that kind of guy, is he?
No, exactly. So I think actually Sasha Spielberg would be a really good answer for that, because she's been in multiple. Yeah. The one I came up with that I thought was really good was Amy Ryan, who is the neighbour in War of the Worlds and Tom Hanks's wife in Bridge of Spies.
Yes.
Did you watch The Wire?
I watched the first season, yeah.
She's in the second season. Oh. Yeah, anyway, moving on. I tell you what I really loved about this film that we haven't talked about. John Williams has only pulled out one of his best scores.
Yes, it's a subtle one, isn't it?
I absolutely loved the score. I thought it was really good because it's really there's a lot of bits which are really tense and paranoid. There's almost like a throbbing beat which almost reminds me of like something like Drive. There's a couple of songs that it's almost like a very Cliff Martinez-esque score, and that builds up the paranoia and the tension and the 70s sort of feel for the whole thing, which I really liked. And then he does have his big like frills during the more emotional moments, and that's great.
But you said it wasn't a particularly tense film. But it definitely does have moments of tension. You're just not talking about like huge overarching one for the final act. But there are real moments of like, it's interspersed with real sort of like on edge, like, are they actually
maybe
do this?
Maybe you're right. Maybe you are right. And then there's another bit in the score that I really liked and this fits with another bit of the filmmaking which I really like, is the Spielberg's use of process. And you talked about process with the Bridge of Spies episode.
Yes.
And like the way he filmed the printing press.
Yes.
Of how they make the newspapers. There's a whole like 2-minute scene of watching the machines work and the process of doing it, and it's got this beautiful score behind it of like spiky strings, which sort of mimic the actual printing press itself.
Yeah.
Just in the score, and I thought that was absolutely brilliant from John Williams.
Yeah. It was sort of, I had a nice energy to it.
Really did.
It wasn't super fast and flashy, but it was like now things are moving ahead.
Exactly. It must be so difficult to score a talkie film.
Yeah.
But and also for me to notice the score, we don't usually talk much about the scores in these films, but I thought it was really good. And also this was John Williams' last score that he's made for Spielberg so far.
Yeah.
Because Ready Player One is Alan Silvestri, I think.
Yes.
And
apparently he was asked, and he sort of had a choice. Do you want to do the score for Ready Player One?
Yeah.
Or the post, because of the schedule for the post being so quick and stuff. He had a choice of one or the other.
Yeah.
So he chose the post.
Yeah. And also he's probably about 170 now, John Williams. So like pull that out of the bag. It was really good. Did you like the start? Because like you mentioned before, it started off in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably just to try and he uses quite a bit. He uses it in Lincoln as well, starting off a talkie film with a battlefield.
Yeah.
In order to try and show the consequences of actually what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And the human cost of the stuff that people are talking in rooms about.
This is going to sound strange if I was to say like it was jarring.
It was a bit.
Considering it's at the start of the movie, how can something be jarring? But it was, because if it was in the middle, then you could definitely say it was jarring.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it is offices and people talking. But it was in contradiction to what came after.
Because you forget about it.
You do forget about it, yeah. You're like, oh, what? Why was that in there?
Yeah.
Because you tend to remember the start of movies, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, this is not a war movie. This is...
And there's no spectacle to it. It's just people going onto the dark jungle and being shot at by the Viet Cong.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Just some troops moving around.
Did I say Viet Cong in a weird way? The Viet Cong. Anyway, but it's you're right, it is jarring because there's no spectacle. Yes, I see what it was trying to do, but I'm not sure it entirely worked.
No. Now, part of me saying, like, I'm not sure this is entirely relatable to me as a Brit.
Yes.
Do you feel like, I mean, I don't know how much research or how much stuff you know about Vietnam, the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
But I feel like one needs a bit more information and knowledge of the Vietnam War to understand quite how important the following events are.
It's interesting how that will play to people who have, like, because my knowledge of Vietnam War comes from GCSE history.
Right.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
And I guess if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't really know much about it, despite the fact that it's very recent history.
I just remember sort of getting towards the end of it, and I remember thinking the real war needed to be summed up a little bit more. I'm surprised they didn't have some kind of writing at the beginning, because Spielberg has done that quite a lot.
It's true, yeah.
You know, why not just be really clear in a couple of sentences why American forces are even over there?
Yeah. I think that may have, like, incurred some criticism for Spielberg for dumbing down. You know, this is, you know, it is quite a complex story, and if you're not listening to bits of conversations, things can pass you by.
True.
And I think that's why this is made for an American audience, because it's very American at its heart.
Because it assumes
knowledge.
Some knowledge of the American...
Which I'm assuming most American people will do. Yeah. Even if they wouldn't be able to point to a Vietnam on a map.
It was lacking a little bit of clarity, because I feel like that just knowing that is quite important.
Yeah.
Or even if they just said, or somehow hinted at, you know, the war being fought over there is essentially like a losing one for the Americans. That is not that clear.
Yeah.
And it would add to this sort of tension of like, oh, so why are they still sending troops over there?
Yeah.
Basically just to die, because they're not even going to win.
Yes. Yeah.
They could have done it in just a couple of lines of text at the beginning.
I think that sort of moment, that human moment, is done well in the scene between Kay Graham and Bob McNamara, who is her personal friend, who is the person who wrote the Pentagon Papers or commissioned the Pentagon Papers, who knew it was an unjust war and it was unwinnable, and yet people are sending over. She confronts him saying, I sent my son went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
And you knew that was wrong and that was unwinnable. Like, how can you live with yourself?
Yeah.
I thought that was dealt with quite well just in that little conversation they had.
Yeah, I just felt like it could have had carried a bit more weight just by having...
I don't disagree. No, sure. But anything else you want to say about the post at all? Or?
No.
So shall we leave it there? So thank you very much for listening. This is our penultimate episode.
It is.
Our penultimate episode proper. We'll be back next week with our final episode, Ready Player One, with a returning special guest. So we look forward to seeing you there. If you can, please subscribe to this podcast. If you haven't done so already, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever medium you get your podcasts on. And you can follow us on Twitter at Big Boat Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at The Bigger Boat Podcast. Or if you want to email us about anything that we've said on the podcast, you can email us on
thebiggerboatpodcast@gmail.com.
So we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, for our final episode.
Bye. Bye.